All right, so welcome to your restorative session today. Of all sessions, this will have some strong kind of expressions within the poses. So you want to have, a little bit of experience with using props and just the rhythm of the sequences. The sequence will be interesting. So you need a little wall space today. You've got a bolster and your other yoga props. So let's sit right in front of our bolster that's horizontal, so it's across the mat. You're sitting in front of it very close. And you'll take two blocks and you'll place your feet together, the soles towards each other, as close as they'll connect. And place the blocks under the knees. Knees are open and resting. Okay. I guess my blocks aren't really under my knees. They're kind of under the web of the thigh and the inner knee. And take a belt. You got to kind of prop up your core span in this position quite a bit to just aim into the pose. But you want to buckle up. So you got to. This is probably I think that's a pretty big loop actually to start. So when you bring that around you, I think usually you need a bigger loop than you think for this one. So you can just make a loop to start. Scooping into your feet. Yeah, see, I measured it too small. And then you're going to make the loop a little bit bigger. Well, it depends on where you're at. And have the buckle near your hip. So it'll be easy to get out. And then I want you to slide the belt so it's at the eyebrows of the buttocks. Okay. Got my blocks. Got my sandbag nearby. I'm going to use my hands on the bolster to give myself a little bit of core leverage. And as I lower back, there might feel like there's a very specific arch here through the rib channel, but as the blocks support you, you might tilt the mat. I tend to tip the block a little bit so that my thighs don't have that kind of pointy pressure. And then, since this is a big assortment of propping, those of you that like sand on the ribs, just get it across there to start. You'll reformulate that once you get on to your relaxed position for your head. Finally, we get the brain to rest back on that kind of global blanket. It's got to, hopefully your ball doesn't glow, but you have it in between. So it's kind of sandwiched in the blanket. You've got a squishy ball. If you don't happen to have anything like that, you can just wad up a blanket or add another blanket to your setting. And then place that sand across the rib so the structure of the ribs feels like it's kind of a bridge. So you might visualize that as the rib cage. So it's a rib bridge. So you can accentuate that circulation in the breathing cycle. I like to use sand because I can kind of pull my ribs a little bit up, and then it relaxes my diaphragm movement with the breath. Right, the area has a little bit more space, and then I stretch the arms open. Okay, it's a pretty pronounced pose, isn't it, with all these props under you? And if it takes your breath away to have the sand in the bolster like this, then don't use the sand. And some of us don't like sand for other reasons besides the pressure. It's just, claustrophobic sensation for some. So find where the practice begins with your breath. And relax the sensation of inhale. Even if that seems kind of downplayed, like it's 2 to 3 counts in, just feel where you are as you center into your practice. Feel those breathing muscles. So as you inhale, you can filter the air in through the nostrils. Feel the rib cage expand. And as you exhale, feel the abdomen relax. Both directions of breath can feel relaxing, actually. As you inhale, the diaphragm flows downwards, and naturally it massages into the organs. And that feels like a bit of a flush, a release. And as you exhale, it completes the cycle of respiration, emptying the lungs. Let's take about another minute and a half or so here. Just settle into the breath. If the height with the blanket is too much, you can always get rid of the ball and feel what it's like without the ball. I kind of like wobbling my head a little side to side with the ball. Kind of helps to get a little bit of traction in the cervical spine. Now bring some focus to the legs. They're kind of trapped, right? They've got a belt, they've got some blocks under, and they're in a position that's formed, right, to start to open up into the leg muscles, the hips, the low back. So just take note of sensation of balance in the legs, in the hips, and working towards manifesting the balance in the lower bracket of the body from the abdomen downwards. Just imagine that's a very balanced place. So with a few more moments here, maybe the shoulders are in a comfy shape. Perhaps you could kind of bring some awareness to keeping them back and down. If that's harsh on your top of your shoulder, or if you feel like it's kind of the top of the arm, that's not okay. We want to keep it so you feel the chest working. Right? We don't want to affect the joint and feel the pressure in the joint, but the circulation in the chest muscles helps the breathing muscles. Okay, now since the ribs have had this kind of wide span, right, with the bolster kind of holding you to open the space, we're just going to simply kind of assign the movement pattern to be ultra simple. Okay, so slide the sand away. Actually, I would slide it over to your left side because it'll be easier to pull it in a moment. Unbuckle, and when you move the belt aside, it could actually still be on your mat. It doesn't matter that much, but it's not on the top of the legs. You'll orient the knees to point inward. So I would slide the blocks out a tad and then walk the feet maybe not as wide as your mat. It really depends on your knee structure and how that balances. So what I do is just widen the stance of my feet, turn the toes in, and the knees rest together. Kind of like in this pattern of the knees moving together, the very top of the thigh might feel a stretch. If you scoot your feet out a little wider stance and have toes and knees towards each other, you can definitely start to feel that. You again don't want to affect the joint. I don't want you to affect the knee joint. So if you feel it particularly in the knee, then it's too far of a stance. Okay. Should feel like the thigh muscles get a little bit of tiny bit of pull. It's kind of unique pulley pattern in the legs. The things we do to stretch out, right? The areas that we try to monitor movement is kind of humorous after all these years. Well, let's get here and here and see what we can do. But the belly is pretty landed, right? It's landed into the back, right? So you can feel this natural arch. This is an easier placement of the abdomen than the moment before, but let's be here. So feel where the arch is in the lower back. Now, if your feet are too wide, then bring them closer. We'll take just a few more seconds. Feel the knees moving together. They're just touching it. You're not trying to like warm them up and slide them side to side. You're not trying to strike a match here. Okay. Now land in the hips heavy, like you're going to move the knees apart. The feet have to go parallel. And then When you motion to your left, just roll to the left and then shift your elbow down to help you turn so you're onto that left hip, and then grab the ball wherever it was, wherever you left it, and then place it on the inside of the right leg. Okay, so this looks like a perfect side sage. So grasp onto the block to go overhead. For those that don't use that, don't bother. And then if you have some sand, this could be your first sand experiment here, is where you place it where you need the opening, right? So not always on the hip. Some of us might, nudge our elbow in the middle for a few moments and just kind of feel how the sand is applied and if it actually holds there. Sometimes you don't know until you get into the experiment. So my ribs are they're kind of nuzzling up to the bolster a bit. So I'm kind of squeezing my elbow into the bolster. And then the right arm can go overhead or open or down by my side. But the legs are part of the position too. So the right leg is trying to stretch back. So this is a sage pose. So I'm using my left foot to push the ball that's on the inside of my right leg to help navigate and feel like I can be grounded. So if some pose pattern, like for instance, my arm, this position doesn't feel very grounded. If I touch down to the block, it's okay now, but in moments it might be too much in the joint, right in the shoulder. So you get to decide where your right arm is going to be. Could be on the side, and you still want to plug into that feeling of the breath in the side body. It's really important here to emphasize the breathing first. And the illustration of the pose is second, right? So breathe first. And maybe you find when you breathe, you need to relax your head more into the blanket. Maybe your right shoulder is shifted back. And we know this is best for shoulders as if it's a little bit back. Again, just notice if the top of the arm or the shoulder peak feels pressure, see if you can work with feeling the different muscles that have kind of a packing around them, like tricep, bicep, these other areas that don't mind getting kind of pushed around a bit. But just caution with the deltoid or specific areas that could provoke the joint structure to get weary and slightly injured. So be cautious if it hurts. Don't continue if it hurts. Find a place for your arm that's comfortable. And take a few more breaths here. Center the weight of your head down. Good. Feel how the collarbone also has a light opening. Okay, now slide the sand, and it may as well go down to the right because you'll eventually need it when you go to that side. But we'll do a little bit of a hip workshop in between the two sides. So when you roll to that left, like you're going to give the bolster a hug, you're going to push up and let's take the bolster. If your blanket is stacked, and you have a higher blanket up, you probably want them to both be low, so quarter folds. Okay. I think if it's too high, it's just not going to work well. So you got a small blanket height under your bolster. You're going to turn your bolster up onto the blanket. And then you'll need a ball for this one. And any size ball would do, right? If you have a 6 or an 8-inch one, they both would work. Actually, the 8 would even work better, but I don't have that size. So when I lower down, you're gonna let the spine lie back. Okay, you'll lift the right foot, cross it to the left knee, place the ball at the upper outer left thigh, right? So not necessarily right up to the hip, because most people would point to the lower part of the waist where it pushes out right below that. So I want you to think thigh, and then use the ball so you can kind of scoop it into that upper outer thigh and then lean into it. Right, so lean the leg, into that ball, okay? Hold on to the right knee with the left hand and encourage your movement practice to be, I guess you could go to the left with your hold. I've been kind of focusing the last half week or so about moving the knee towards me versus across. But now that I'm in it, I'm thinking, might be nice to go across. Depends on the mood of the hip, right? How your hip is today. And if it feels too low with your head back, that's why I had us have the blankets low. It might feel challenging. So your work is on stretching your spine this much. So you're working with that definition. Yes, it'd be easier if my blanket made it higher. I would you just make it like I'm just resting on my back, pulling my knee. But for now, feel like you are resting on your back, but a little strength into the spine. And if you're on the side of that left foot, that would be nice, not on the bottom of the foot. You're kind of tilted on your left foot. That's below you. And then when you're holding onto that right leg, right arm, let's relax it so that we can focus on the hip. So you're pulling with that left hand. And feel what it's like when you pull the leg towards you, but be careful of the knee. We don't want to unscrew the knee. Okay. You want to feel like you're getting a good grip with that leg. So I kind of scoop around my knee and I feel, some of the circulation when I pull just around the knee into that cartilage. So just kind of feel a good grasp. Okay, now sample what it's like to really be slack on your left foot. So you're not only on the side of that left foot, but you kind of relax the bones, the articulation of the ankle a little bit on the bottom foot. I guess both feet are on the bottom. Okay, slide the left hand away. Notice if anything sticks, like you can stay connected. And then when you move the knee back, don't take the leg across right now, don't shift it yet. You'll place a block. Try to work with just touch, feel around to find it. Use the block, place it so that you're holding it and placing the pressure to the right inner thigh, close to the knee. It doesn't have to be exactly on the knee. You want to palpate it here. So I would just touch with that block. Now I've got my block at kind of the second setting. Some have longer arms and it might be better with the flats, but it seems to me the second setting I kind of push back and forth with, kind of rock back and forth. I saw a new block at REI the other day it was curved. It was called the Unblock yoga block. And so it's kind of a blend between when they used to have the egg-shaped blocks and then this kind of block. It was neat. So if I was doing this, it would be like this contoured. It'd feel good, but I wasn't sold on it. I wasn't quite so sure. What would happen if I had my hands and I was on all fours trying to use it? Trying to figure that out. Okay, so shift. So this right leg, I would just let that right leg lengthen down for a moment. Push. If you're lucky to have a wall spot, that might feel kind of interesting. So press into that right leg. Let the whole right thigh just rest down for a moment. You can push, you can relax it. And then slide the foot back in, just a mini motion there. Cross the left foot to the right knee. Place the ball over besides the upper outer right thigh. And then lean the body weight into that ball. Just go right into it. Right hand holds onto the left knee. And when you get a nice hold of that knee, I think you just have to go with where it flows for the sensation that feels helpful. So if you go, oh, I hold the knee and it feels good to go to the right, go with that. If you hold the knee and it feels good to kind of pull it towards you, go with that. But stay very specific on this left hip. So if I swing my arm back, it shifts my focus, doesn't keep it sculpted on the hip. Okay, so reach the focus inwards to the left hip, breathing. And even enjoy relaxing your eyes. You might feel the lower back working a little bit here to maintain composure. Notice just, moment of where you feel this in the left leg, hip area. Where do you feel it pretty high up in the leg, and the attachment into the pelvis or hip. So when you slide your hand away from holding that knee, get your block and go, gradual movement. I shift my legs back to the center. I keep my left foot crossed to the right knee. I get the block, I place it to that left leg, and I just palpate a little bit. I'm focusing on kind of ingraining the last stretch into that thigh, into the hip. So you could just push the leg, the left inner leg. You could just stay plugged in there. Not a bad method, but movement might be useful. I like to just kind of feel how the tissues are. There's just so much to navigate in your body, how it's doing, how the circulation is in the lymph, how it is in the connective tissue, which is going to affect the lymphatic system. So I think a little bit of this touch and push work is probably really helpful for us, just in stimulating the immune system, right? So this would be something you could add in. I guess I could file my block so it has a little bit of a curve in one of the sides to it, huh? I'm sure I have a block around I could do that with. Okay, now when you shift, this might be nice. You're going to take that left leg, stretch it down, okay? If you're too close to the wall, my apology, do the best you can letting the leg go down. Okay, it helps you stretch your spine. And then you've got the ball on that right side somewhere. So when you slide the left foot back up, roll to the right. So I usually play with this movement pattern a lot more often now that I do restorative quite a bit. So, you navigate when you're supine, you're on your back, you're gonna move your hips to the left like you're wagging your tail left. And then you'll roll to that right side and then take the bolster, just turn it, easy, and get the ball to the inside of that left leg. If you need your blanket higher, and then head into side sage. Yeah, feel where the pattern of shifting onto the second side, like you want to come into the pose patterns like it's an exploration. That's why we go sort of slow. So, maybe it feels good for the sand to be in a not quite the same location, but close on the second side. Each side probably is different, right? It does, you're trying to find balance, but you've got to honor and really clue into what is special about the side to work through getting spacious with the side beam. Feels so good to get the side stretched out. And the arm doesn't have to be overhead. I could let my head relax to the right. I want my left side of my neck to be comfortable. I could stretch the arm over to touch the block. I could rest it on the side. But but get a feel. If you're kind of nudging your hips towards the right, like you're kind of moving into a pelvic tilt, that's kind of the opposite of what you want. You want the lower back to have a very small natural curve, not trying to scoop the tailbone under. It's kind of an in-between cat-cow pose. Okay, so find where your arm could be comfortable. Head relaxes down. Now get a feel for the breath in the rib cage. So expand wherever your arm is fine. Expand in the center piece of the body. Feel where your progression of expansion is. Maybe the sand is tough for you to feel the movement of the ribs around or under the sand because it's a lot of weight. So maybe it's kind of the breath movement of the ribs feels like it kind of pushes out under the sand. You can always move the sandbag a little bit down and see if that helps you. But get a nice seam of length here through the side. Side seam elongates. Okay, now relax the reach. If your arm is down, now you'll slide the sand, I think, over to the left. So just drop it off to that side. And then when you rotate in, I want you to give yourself whatever motion feels good for you. If you need to do a little cat-cow before we do sitting on the bolster, some people want to have that balance in the back, or you could roll to the right. Use your arms to help sit you back up on the bolster. But if you need to, do any sort of movement with your back that between these two moments, go for it. Always a good option at home that you can do what you want, what's helpful. So the blankets, I think I'm going to leave mine just like so. Yeah, I think so. So the right leg stretches out. You'll need your belt, you need your sand, you'll need maybe a ball. But situate yourself on this bolster so that you feel like the broadness of the bolster is well accessed. You're using a lot of your leg matter on the bolster, right? So some of us use the bolster and we tip forward quite a bit. So even if you feel like you're sitting on the back of the bolster, you're gonna Humpty Dumpty off the back, that's probably a good perspective for this one. Okay, so you're very much centered onto it. So don't use a round bolster for this one. Okay. Take a sandbag on the left thigh. If you would like a ball under the left knee, just use it if it feels like the knee doesn't want to splat down. And then with the belt, we'll use this, we'll make a loop. And you just need a long enough belt so it'll wrap around you. So if you have a pretty long belt, you probably don't need to make this that much smaller. Mine is gargantuan belt length here, so I don't have to make a small loop, but you want it to reach behind you and then be able to catch it with your left hand. And I want you to have enough belt that when you catch it, you're not straining your shoulder. So the shoulder part is really, I think, the interesting piece here. So let's hold the belt really close to the body. We're not yanking the belt back and showing off our ability to stretch the chest muscles, because it can aggravate up here on the shoulder. So I would just hold it close. Now, the thing that you want to notice here, and you can't see this on me, I don't think, is that your hand holding the belt, the palm is open. This is the big part of this. We don't want to turn this way because then it kind of goes up into the line of the meridian into the heart meridian, and it just pivots everything in. So we got heart and lung meridian moving through the arm here. So we want this to be open. So we're not so concerned about yanking the arm back. We've done that in class before, but let's just keep it simple. So hold on to the left knee and then try to get the ribs to do the turning. Right, the breath is helping the organs rest, but the ribs are probably a little limited. This is my capacity and that's fine, but during the living day, I don't do a lot of this in my daily just habit, just sitting and sending the ribs to turn. So let the moment here help your body circulate into the kidneys. And that's a big part of the twist. Abdomen relaxed. Let the belly just move with the breath. Good. Now you feel how the arm reach can cause a little bit of pull with the shoulder down on the right shoulder. Right. So you'll take the right hand and reach it to your belt. That's kind of next to your right leg. It's under your right foot. So I want you to get a good hold of the belt so the palm is open. Okay, so I have a hold of my belt. And then I bend the right elbow and I'm just going to keep both hands on the belt for now. This is quite a low back waistline stretch, the QL. Really nice one for this lower back waist area. Feels so nice to get the stretch. And you can get it without your hand, your left hand holding the belt. You can swing it back or overhead. But I'm just keeping it real kind of simplistic here. We don't need to swing the arms around. We're staying close to the center. And my left hand is still turned in towards my body. I smile because I haven't always had that good habit. So pull and maybe turn your head down towards the right leg. Feel how the action is in the waistline, the left side of the waist. Now, if you're pulling kind of vigorously, I want you to lighten up the pull, like the energy of going down towards the right leg. Just accept what you have basically. Don't nag the back anymore. So it feels plenty of stretch, just the right amount. Okay, now relax your grip with the hands. Come up to spine tall. And then let's take the belt off that right foot and then cross the right foot in front of the left. And you might have to scoot the knees, well, the left knee at least, closer towards pointing to your right foot. So, yeah, we'll keep it basic here. Let's take our sand to the right thigh. Let's get some blocks. If they're way out of town, that's okay. You don't have to have them for this, but if you can get a hold of both of them, it would be nice. And then take the blocks in front and span them out a little bit to the edge of your mat and lean forward. If you're kind of falling off the bolster, you might scoot back. This is why it was so nice to be really on the bolster. Use it as leverage to stretch your hip. Right, so I would just take those blocks to a position for you, which might mean towards the left. That feels very specific in the right hip. If you want it forward, it's a little more of kind of a blended back opener as well as hip. And I recognize that the one little challenge here is that the neck droops, okay? So use the power of the arms. And this is a forward pressure with the arms. So if you need to bring the arms a little closer in because it hurts your arms and bring the blocks really close, but use that reach with the arms, the pressure through the muscles of the arms so that you're not, dropping your head. You're using your arms to kind of hold the spine tone the spine. And it's still tempting, and I don't know, maybe you're doing it. But can concentrate on the arm work. Okay. Give it a few moments. This will drift into the next side though. And then bring your hands back to your top leg. Take the left leg out. If you almost fall off your bolster, just get back up. could happen. Left leg goes out, sand is on the right thigh, we're set. So all we do is we take our belt. It seems like pretty massive loop here, but I don't need it to undo it. So now I take the belt to the left foot and the right foot is towards the left thigh. I'm gonna add my ball under my right knee. You might do that. And then when you reach back with your right hand to the belt, again, my hand is close to my left buttock right now. And so when I turn, I might slide it a little bit farther to the other side so that I can feel the ribs rotate. However, you might have one shoulder injury, one other shoulder fine with this. So let's say you're getting into that situation with the shoulder and it feels like it's kind of inflamed somehow, or you just notice more on one side. What I would do instead of bending your elbow more and trying to tug is to just let the arm try to lengthen down, the right arm. Try to get the composure so the spine of the shoulder is supported. Now, left hand is important here. You don't want to just let the right arm do the work. So feel how the left hand is onto the right leg and the ribs turn. Yeah, these fundamental things are good, I think. You kind of end up going back to, kindergarten yoga anyway, I think, to progress. So rotate. Yeah, the left foot doesn't have to go farther out across the room. It can just stay where it's at. You can feel when you push through the left foot, the left lower side of the abdomen gets a little bit of tone. It's nice to work on that. And feel that rotation, breathe. And take off to the next shape on your own. So if you want to stay here, because it's kind of ingrained into your anatomy, feeling strength, you can stick with this. And those that want to fall into the next shape, you can reach down with your left hand to the belt on the leg, tug a little bit and lean. Yeah, so my right hand, I could scoot that closer to my left buttock, but it's not necessarily going to make it better. So, what's going to be helpful is to keep moving your ribs to the right. That's going to, the main influence is the ribs. Go ribs, go ribs. The ribs can always get a little stronger. I know it's a pretty interesting area, right? Above the organs to strengthen. Okay, now feel when you're pulling with that right hand a little bit. Now release the grip with your right hand entirely. And slide with that left hand on the belt to bring yourself center. And take a moment when you hold the belt, not that you have to keep this, but just get a feel of turning the waist center and forward and the prim and properness of sitting up tall, right? And then you'll pull with the left hand and you'll slide that left foot, maybe your blocks are there, and you'll take the belt off your foot and cross the left foot in front. You can close off the gap here a little bit by putting the sand over to the left thigh. It's kind of a box pose right now. So my right leg still has the ball because it feels fine. I don't mind having it there. But if you need to move it to the other leg, go for it. And you shift forward. And your work is, again, I'm trying to keep that neck supported. Yeah, but you can, work with the balance of the arms and the frequency into the shoulders. So feel that you press. That's an interesting pressure in the shoulder, isn't it? It's not quite a push-up. It's not quite a chest press, but it's somewhere in between those two. It's a slant that goes up into the tricep, so that might feel kind of nice for you to ignite the tricep a bit. So feel like you're tilting forward with the hips. And if you want more hip stretch, you'll go to the right with the blocks. You don't have to turn the corner, but you might feel that you go towards about 1 or 2 o'clock on the right hand side, and then get that feel of the hip. If it bothers your knee though, if going this angle is like, oh, it starts to kind of tear around the knee tear, you would put your ball there. You get a little bit of support. That changes, things change side to side a little bit, don't they? You can also have your blocks in front this whole time. Not that we didn't know there's choices, huh? Okay, one last few moments here in the seated shape before we come to the wall. So feel how you're tilting, feel how the spine manages the position of sitting. There's good times ahead for the back here, okay? This kind of gave us a good a grounding experience for the hips. Okay, so let's come back with move your blocks off to the side. Let's see where we're gonna go with it. So they can go off to the side anywhere. And then as you come upright, we're gonna shift, and I want us to work on kind of this mid space. So the sand goes away, I think the ball will go too. And then we'll turn so that you're gonna switch so that you've got a wall behind your feet. So however you need to get there, if you're already near one, you got your mat at the base of the wall. And I want you to put your belt to the side. We'll use it maybe. But have your blanket so that it's under your knees. Yep. This one usually, I tend to not make it exactly the way I need it. When I get into the shapes, I go, oh, I wish the blanket was this way or that way. So kind of have it in the middle so it can be useful. And then turn your bolster so it's lengthwise under you. You don't know exactly where it's going to be till you land on it. But place your hands down so they're right connected to support your shoulders. So some of us that will be forward with the hands, some it'll be right under. So kind of navigate this for a few moments. The fingers spread out, the feet touch the wall. I'm in a simple crawl pose. I like it to be explained like that. I'm in crawl position. And then as I round the back, chin to chest, feel the spine swerve and move. You feel it swerve around and arch the spine. So let's go to what feels good for you. Some of you will kind of wag your tail in between the cat-cow. Some will just stay with a very disciplined arching and rounding. Yeah, give it a try here, alternate. If it's too much pressure on your hands, you can have your elbows on your bolster. You just have to pivot the bolster. Put your elbows down, hands together, and round and arch. You can even still wag your tail on this one too. Okay, but don't do it if the wrists are feeling like they're getting too much pressure into the wrist. The hand, that's a different access. We'll take a few more of these motions, arching and rounding. And then let the waist stretch forward and lower down the bolster. Be sure the bolster is not too far back on the tops of the thighs. So as you lower down, mine is at the very top of my thigh, but it's not down to my knees or anything. And then I rest, I push down to my hands to stretch my torso a little bit. And then I rest the chest down onto the bolster and my head onto my hands. Okay, so I want you to play a bit here with the feet pushing the wall. So you'll push back into the wall, feel the toes, curled under, feel the reach of the feet, the knees maybe a little bit up. And then with the breath repetition, your only focus is that you're pushing into the wall. Doesn't mean your heels touch though, just the balls of the feet. Okay. And then feel that pattern of pushing that brings the circulation up into the hips and helps the back. So I want you to keep it real pure and simple. Head down, pushing, and then breathing. So just let the props support you. Don't feel like you have to do anything but breathe and let the props bring the pose to you, including the wall, pushing your feet. Okay, now when you lower down through the knees, relax that pressure down. And then I want you to push the blanket forward and bring your elbows down into Sphinx. So if your blanket's a little bit over your fingers, that's okay. Just not under your fingers. So you press down to the elbows. Yeah, I feel like I could put my elbows a little farther forward. Press down and feel where the elbows are close to the bolster. Just close enough so that you can form some strength into your shoulder here. Okay, my feet are lightly pushing the wall. It's not aggressive, just an easy hinge in the knee. Okay, slide the hands back. Let's see, if your blanket got pushed like mine, you're gonna have it so it's on the other edge of the mat, but it's at the end of the mat, not the edge. Maybe a little bit in, we'll see, you'll notice why. We come up and we take the bolster and we place it on top. Everything's a reach. Yeah, I want it to be a pretty good reach though. Don't pull it so far in that you can't get something out of it. So reach your hands on top and let your head center in between. Okay, if this is too much for your shoulders, then you pass on it and you have your hands down on the ground and you let your head go center of your arms. It's fine. Don't have to do this. No requirement. Center is fine. Okay, now those of us that have the hands onto the bolster, we lower down and we all meet with down dog. So we lift the knees and we stretch the heels and they're lifted up on the wall. So you can progress to stretching the calves by lowering the heels down if that works for you today. If that's too much into the calves, then just let the heels be a little bit up. Okay, and press so that the floor is being pushed away. You can make it a short dog, a long dog. You get to choose. Visualizing what that might be. So as I push back and I feel the heels trying to stretch down, take a few breaths here. Feel that lift of the hip bones. Good work. So maintain a few more moments. A good 1 minute downward dog. And a lot of blood flow from this position. You can relax your paws. And then as you shift your knees down, take a block set. You got a set of hands, you got a set of blocks for the hands. And then let's take a stride forward. So let's go forward with our left foot. Okay, we'll take a lunge so the front of that right thigh stretches downwards. But I want you to lift up the back knee and stretch the heel towards the floor. Okay, so you're in more of a lengthening position for both legs, not just the torso and the spine, but also the legs. So my heel on the back leg might be up at the wall. Some of you might have to practice with your heel up, which is kind of a gift because the wall's nice, a nice prop. If you notice your arms really hyper mobile in this position, you can take your blocks farther up. If you just need to get the back to stretch, try to keep the blocks a little bit down. So if I have mine higher, then I tend to I feel that my neck muscles are not as comfortable as if the blocks are down, but you decide, and it's completely personal. Okay, feel how the back leg is reaching. I want those of you that have the heel a little bit up at the wall to start to lower it just a tad. And then for all of us, we're going to pivot the left foot, the toes to the right, and take our blocks over to the right so that we'll be in a wide stance. Blocks under hands, feet wide. Feel the hips push back. And then lower down. So if your hands are on the flat blocks, you can push them forward. For some of us, that will be fine and will be accessible. And for some of us, we'll decide to hold our legs with our hands because it's kind of fun to do. Head down, straight down. Okay, so find where it's either holding legs or hands on blocks. There's nothing really in between that we're going to choose today. So try to get a feel of the legs lengthening whichever version you choose. Legs are lengthening. And if you need a micro bend, just a little bend in the knees. Breathe. Yeah, really feel that blood flow to the face, to the heart. Okay, slide the blocks in carefully. So you're going to gradually grip and kind of pull them back. And then we'll turn with our blocks in hand to the left foot and we'll exchange. So we'll bring the right heel up, we'll step it forward, but stop here for a moment, just pause so that you can be in a very structured forward bend. You can have your hands on your bolster. This is not necessarily an easy reach for some. So if that's a difficult reach for you, have your hands on your blocks besides you, any height, right? Well, there's only 3, but you have a height besides you. And those of you that decide, no, I'm going to go straight down, you can hold your elbows and traction the spine with this full grip onto the arms and release of the weight of the brain down. Yeah, feel where the pressure is in your feet and try to let some of that pressure smooth out in the feet. You might tilt a little back, you might tilt forward. Just feel the feet, make an impression in the ground. Elongate all the way through the spine, all the way through the neck. Relax your grip, get your blocks and take that second side, left foot back. We'll start with the heel a little bit up. And, even if your heel can go straight down, you might start with this ambition because it's a little more weight bearing in the hip, right? So kind of notice if I'm pushing off of the wall a little bit, I'm getting a little more plugged into my hip. So it's nice to get the flexibility, but see if we can get some stability weaved in here and there. And your second side, you might navigate it with the idea of, okay, I get the leg from bending to straight, those types of instructions, but feel just your way into your bones. So maybe you stretch your left heel towards the floor. Maybe you notice, wow, it's a little bit restricted to reach the heel down. So you go a little bit up at the wall. But one thing about that lift at the wall is that there's a tendency to kind of push back into the underbelly, right, of the back of the right knee. So you want to feel your hips move back too, like you're trying to wag your tail. So if the heel does go downwards, maybe just towards the ground, not quite tap down, but it's close-ish, you got to keep the hips going back. So I find that I can sometimes feel one place, I'm aiming to get the full deal, but my hips aren't going in that direction. So be a little cautious. You might be better off with a little lift of your heel, but both hips are moving back. So as we balance for a few more moments on these legs, it's a balance pose too. Let's try to straighten them out. I feel this in my hip a bit, my right hip. Some days you feel everything though. Okay, so bend to the right knee, good work, and lower the left knee down. Creaking joints, and then bring the right knee to shift a little forward so you stretch the front left thigh. Feels good to get that length in that left leg, front of the left leg. Okay. Okay, so shift back and stretch bring the right knee back. Have the blocks besides. I'm putting them on this side so you can see where I'm navigating the movement. We're gonna take the bolster to the base of the wall. You'll have one blanket under your head. And that means you gotta flip over. Okay, so turn, unless you wanna put under your head when you're on all fours, that would be kind of cute. That would look so cute. Okay, so place the bolster at the very base. Push it up. Yeah, I played with this on both angles, but this seems like the most appropriate for the footing versus tilted, but I would sample it from time to time, play with stuff. When you lower back, let's take a ball between the knees and start with the feet on the bolster for this massage to the spine. And feel how far up you get the spine. So my feet at the floor, at the base, so they're on the bolster. Now I push into my feet. So well, the reality is when I push into my feet, the bolster probably doesn't go straight down. It pushes into what it's against is the wall. So when you lift up your hips, try to keep your arms kind of limited with the movement right now. And I want you to lift and lower the spine. I know you're lifting and lowering your hips, but you are using the leg muscles to move the spine. And feel how high you get up. Notice how high you get up on the spine. Okay, when you're just with your feet on your bolster. If you get all the way up towards the shoulder blades, okay, now bring your feet to the wall. Okay, the challenge here I find, now the ball is an additional to bonus for your circulation, but if it bothers you, just get rid of it. Okay, so now you have your hips in the same zone. So what you might do if you feel like getting closer to the wall, it's up to you, you can. I'm trying to stay strict with the discipline here. So I'm gonna keep my hips the same area. And I'm gonna push and I'm gonna lift up again. Okay, now notice your feet could go farther up the wall at the beginning lift off, right? You can walk them up before you lift up. But I want you to notice, this is more of a prep for a shoulder stand, that you maybe get higher up on the shoulders. I find I'm getting kind of the same, maybe a little bit higher with my feet at the wall when I lift and lower. Okay, so last time, let's take about 2 more so you get a little more movement through the spine. Try to get all the way to lengthen down though. So when you push into your feet to lower down, I want you to actually really push into those feet so it gets through each vertebrae. It's kind of combing them out, lengthening, creating more space between. That's the key, spacious. Okay, and once you land down, notice this is not back rounding work, it's strengthening. So now we're going to take a bridge pose, full bridge pose with our feet down or on the bolster. I'll show 2 versions, you get to choose. So one version, I actually really prefer this one lately, but is to bring my feet on the bolster and to lift up my hips. I take 1 or 2 blocks side to side. I'm going to go 2 lengthwise side to side under my pelvis. Let my hips relax on the blocks. Push my feet into the wall. I put sand here. I can get rid of my blanket if I don't like it. Feels fine to me right now. But keep this open. Okay. Spine has this really nice arch. Second version, you choose, is going to be a bolster is not against the wall. Okay, so those of you that are going to choose version 2 that know it's a little more advanced, tiny bit. Okay, bolsters off to the side. And then I get closer to the wall. I bring my feet up. Don't really need my blanket for this version. And I lift my hips. I put my block under second setting or third. This is third setting, right at the back of the pelvis, the tailbone. And then I lower my feet down to the floor. Right, bigger pose, right? Maybe you could say it's bigger pose, but it really depends on how you feel about the sensation. So if this pose feels, or you look at it and go, that just doesn't look very comfy, then don't approach, okay? This is not a good one to turn your head at all in. You don't want to be moving your head side to side And if there's a little space at the neck, that's okay. We don't want to crunch it where we're jamming the back of the skull and then pushing our vertebrae in the neck, kind of spiking them up. So you want to feel like it's a smooth, natural curve in the spine. So my shoulders kind of hold that natural curve right now. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I can keep that. Now you could try to get your hands together on this one, but I just don't naturally find that position. So I'm going to stay with just the palms open, shoulders back. Try to accept that's it. Okay. Yeah, feet can be at the base of the wall for this one, and you have to let the body weight rest into the block to help open up the front of the hip. Both poses get nice hip flexor openings. Okay, so stay with the breath for a few more cycles. Send the circulation through the belly. Yeah, you're not missing out on anything, so you don't need to turn your head side to side. Strengthen in the upper back. Yeah, just notice if one side of the frontal hip bone, feels more open, one side feels more dense. It might be that your weight in your feet is not proportional. So I would kind of notice that. Notice how your weight is at the ball of the foot, the toes up. If your feet are pushed right against the wall, same thing, notice the foot pressure. Palms open. Great. So now when you come out, if your feet go up the wall, for some of you, you'll have to step them back up the wall first. Get them high enough that it's going to be easy for you to relax your shoulders, push into your feet, lift your hips a tad, slide the block out and lower down. Those of you with your feet at the wall already, you're going to just lift the hips up a little bit by pushing down into the bolster and then trying to slide the blocks out and then start to lower down. Okay. So for all of us, we're back to the centerpiece of the body, the pelvis. So I want you to move your bolster to the right side of your mat, okay? And scoot back a lot, right? Depends on your last pose. If you have the bolster under your feet, you don't have to scoot back very much. But if you're closer to the wall, you gotta go back, okay? Back enough that your legs can stretch and touch the wall without a big knee bend like this. So keep lengthening. All right. Now, actually, let's do that for a moment. Let's feel the feet at the wall so we can feel the natural curves even at the back of the leg, into the knee, into the back of the thighs. Just kind of scan where the body backing feels. Okay, there might be a tilt in the pelvis you naturally do when you push into your feet, right? You're either an anterior or posterior tilter. I don't think you can be both. Okay. Otherwise, there'd be a word that would be in between. All right, so when you slide the left foot, we don't have to have a word for everything. Slide the left foot in so the knee is up, and then relax your right knee to roll out on this lower hip. So this lower hip bone, you want it to roll out to the right. So the left leg can cross over. I imagine you got a little work to do here to get kind of organized. So you're trying to get your leg over onto your bolster, your left leg, sorry. If it's too far down to get to your knee to touch close, you might put a blanket on top of the bolster. A ball to the sacrum, right, just kind of lodge it in there. And then add your sand to the outer leg. Maybe you feel enough here. If you're feeling plenty, and if you're concerned about your knee, I would put the sand closer to your knee, because if it's farther away, it's a sheer pull on the knee. So just feel if the arm opens. Both arms are one arm. And you can touch onto the sand to kind of smooth it out or kind of wiggle the sand so it gets a little bit of circulation boost, circulation upgrade, and relax your eyes. Okay, cycle the breath. Feel the abdomen turn, the spinal. We've just got a few poses. Handful left. So soak up the influence of the spine arch into the ribs. Now slide the sand away and let's bring the ball to center. So you'll bring the knees in, scoop them just not all the way to your chest, but just up, place the ball between the knees and squeeze and feel what it's like when your feet are kind of dangling down from the knees. They're not, if you push your feet up, it will kind of tense up the hip flexors. So you might even, place your finger pads kind of right at the top of the frontal hip bone. And you want to make sure that's calm. You don't want that to ignite and flare up. So you can kind of push into that space just to keep that resting down so the feet do dangle down. And then relax your feet. Well, actually, it's not relaxed feet, is it? But step your feet into the ground. Keep the hip flexor, this whole frontal right to the attachment of the quad, as relaxed as it can be. It's not necessarily going to be all passive because you're connected, but I don't want you to tense it up, and I want you to squeeze into the ball. So you're using your inner leg muscles to squeeze. And I want you to fire at really all of it into your frontal hip bone. I want you to squeeze into your adductor. If you lose the ball, don't worry about it too much. Just let the knees go together. Okay, so feel that squeeze. You can relax your hands. Take a few moments. Squeeze pelvic forward. Relax the grip on the ball and squeeze again. That was half a second. Relax your grip and squeeze again. Microsecond. And relax. This is a good exercise to do. Let's do it one more time. Just squeeze in. You got a few moments. And then as you relax the grip, I don't want you to pull your knees to your chest quite yet. So see if you can reach for the ball. Maybe you'll get on your tippy toes. And then take the bolster to your left side. But the reason being, we're going to do legs at the wall at the end. I don't want to shock the sacrum. Pull the knees fully in yet. It's like at the end, we'll get there. So bolster on the left leg down, turn the foot over to the left and roll the right knee over to the bolster. Okay, and the ball is at the sacrum and the sand is on the side of that the right leg. If you don't want sand, don't use it. It's sometimes people just feel funny without it. You feel it, it's grounding. It might be a nice kind of rooting support, kind of roots you, and then move that right arm open and turn your head to the right. You can always move the sand around. You can kind of touch onto the sand with your left hand and kind of jiggle the sand to massage into the tissues a little bit. But feel how the ribs rotate to the right. Now you can choose how the pelvis is angling. So I mentioned the tilts that we have. You might get a feeling if you're almost like you're trying to feel the right thigh shift a little downstream towards the wall. So it's those little small nutations of the pelvis that affect how the connective tissue stretches. That's why I sometimes like that idea of kind of pushing a little bit with the hand on the sandbag, pushing it down away from your center body. And then if you have sand, you'll just slide it away. You'll roll to the left, push, and then when you come up, I want you to take your bolster right against the wall. You know the drill. You got your blanket a little closer in, you got your sandbag as well. And then as you lower down, you might edge your hips way up to the wall. So you lift it on the bolster and just kind of get your body really, really close. The closer your tush is to the wall, the more upside down you're going to be. It's just pure and simple. And if I'm too far away, how am I going to get my seat at the wall? Okay, so if you fall off the other side, then you'll you'll push a little bit into your heels and then kind of bring yourself back center of the bolster and you try to get close again. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you kind of have to fuss around until it gets to be acceptable. If you're fine without sand and you just feel like that's going good, then you don't have to add it. Plenty of posers. You do this without sand. But I like the weight onto the feet because it's clearly stimulating to the circulation into my diaphragm. It's more resistance for my breathing muscles because it's going to be working right now to push against the organs that are pushing down into the diaphragm now that I'm upside down. So it's simply a strengthener for your respiratory system. I think by now many of you probably don't feel like it's a respiratory pose, but when you find someone new to it, it definitely is a respiratory pose. You can hear it in their breath. So let the ribs be open, be ribful, and then let your arms either go out with the ribs spatially or back a little bit with the kind of cactus arms. I don't know, I kind of go back and forth with just closing my eyes and just feel what is the best arm position. Just in the moment, just accept where it is. Maybe it's hands on the belly. Maybe it's really rolling your shoulders down and in. That doesn't work well with cactus, right? Shoulders down and in. It's not really the cactus pose, is it? So as the mind centers back onto the beginner's breath, so feel that inner dependence on the movement of the breath to massage the organs and return the body to a state of simplicity. So feeling the natural tilt of breathing as well as the spine and the pelvis. And a solid amount of circulation and weight into the hips. Now the wall holds you, right? So it's a prop that's designed in this position to help get you upside down, right? So kind of imagine that you're trying to get those heels so they're lifted, even with that weight, kind of pushing upwards with your feet. But you're also moving them downwards, letting the feet flex. So you're stretching the calves. So soak this up for a few more moments, really feeling that reverse flow, reversing the effects of gravity on the cardiovascular system. I know, here's your cardio pose for the moment. Loving this as cardio. This would probably be a fun thing to do right before you do that, and then definitely after. But I can't think of an outdoor place I could exactly do your legs up. Maybe up a tree. You'd have to bring a mat along. The outdoor mat. Okay, now as you move your legs a little bit away from the wall, bend. Now you're welcome to let your knees squeeze in and then slide the sand away. And then feel how the back muscles are stretchy. Just feel how they stretch. Roll to the side. If you need to stay there a little longer because getting up might be a little swift there, but your circulatory system is probably getting the hang of that moment of time to come up, but you're still grounded, right? You have your back supported at the wall, your pelvis onto that height, and just feel the attachments of the arms connecting, pulling the heart forward. So if you can bring your hands up in front of the heart and feel that pressure of the palms together and just visualize that lift of the heart center up, the abdomen relaxing down and forward with the breath. And let's find just a collective kind of spirit here of connecting with breath together. Breathing in wellness from practice. And exhale, bowing into